coast sailing life, it can look so picturesque, with beautiful white sand beaches, clear water, wind in the sails, and the open ocean. But there's a high risk to having your whole life and nearly everything you own aboard a 38-foot boat, where the only thing separating you from the bottom of the ocean is a little bit of fiberglass. There's also an added constant stress in knowing that if one small component fails, it can spell disaster. On top of that, you are at the mercy of Mother Nature and the unforgiving conditions of the sea. Now, with all that being said, as a boat owner, it's moments like this that make your stomach drop. Traveling has been my driving force in life for the last 5 years. Whether it's by sea on my sailboat, or by land in my camper van and motorcycle, my sense of adventure has always acted as my compass. Subscribe to become a part of the journey and experience all the beautiful places and people I encounter along the way. I had jumped in the water for a nice, relaxing swim, only to find this unexpected surprise. The rudder had been completely split in half. Okay, where do I start? I really haven't done much filming at all since Puerto Rico. We were kind of just hopping along the south side of Puerto Rico, and we made our way to Culebra, and the whole south side of Puerto Rico was pretty much an ass kicking, with the easterly trade winds constantly blowing, and this late in the season it's average that every day it's pretty much blowing 20 knots, and we are going directly east, so it's pretty hard to sail. You're kind of just beating and bashing into it the whole time. On our way to Culebra, it was really rough. We were pushing through, we were pushing the motor pretty hard, taking a lot of water over the bow. Had a little bit of an issue happen, and all of the water that was coming over the bow and kind of funneling towards the back, the two back lazarettes that I have there were filling with water. My propane tanks were just floating in water, and those two lazarettes kind of leak and don't fully drain properly, and so all of that water was leaking down into kind of the storage cabinet that I have right beside my bed. The lazarettes would be up here. So this whole compartment was filled with water, and it overflowed onto all of my stuff in here, trickled down onto the seat cushion, which I still don't have here because it's soaking wet, filled this whole compartment with water, then trickled out of that, filled the floor with water, and filled the galley with water. So it was a pretty significant amount that came in, and it was very frustrating to have to pull this stuff out, clean everything out, throw a bunch of things out, and yeah, so that kind of gives you a little visual reference of what happened there. That passage was honestly just so terrible. I didn't even have the energy to pick up the camera. I just felt so defeated and so done with everything. And I know that it's very important to show the difficult times of sailing and to capture that, and of all the times, that should be the time that I'm picking up the camera to show kind of the struggles that also go on. Because, take it from me, it is not all sunshine and rainbows. We made it from Culebra to the British Virgin Islands. Again, a very tough passage. The boat was still half filled with water. I just did not have the energy. I was so done. Basically, the grand plan for this season is to get down to Grenada for hurricane season. Yesterday, we checked out of the country, and we were just kind of staging here to be able to do an overnight passage over to St. Kitts. And then from St. Kitts, there would only be 30-40 mile hops between islands before getting it to Grenada. And so we were kind of in a rush and just really need to make some miles and get down there in time for our haul out date schedule. And so when we were here, we hooked up to a mooring ball, and I jumped in and went for a little swim, and I noticed a pretty significant problem. Half of the rudder has been almost completely ripped off. The fiberglass that coats that whole port side of it is completely just off. The bottom tip of it has also been kind of just broken off, and it's just exposed the foam core that's underneath that. So that was a pretty devastating thing to find. It's kind of like, you know, one punch after another punch, and you just keep getting beaten down. We had thought maybe it'll just make it to Grenada and we can just kind of limp it there, but it's not the safe thing to do, it's not the smart thing to do. And so now, unfortunately, today we're gonna have to take the boat and haul it out. And we're just gonna try and patch it up as best we can and as quickly as we can, and then get back in the water and make these miles down to Grenada, because I've already paid a deposit there, already booked flights out of there to go home to Canada. So I really want to try and keep that original plan intact, but it's going to be a bit of a struggle over the next couple days, hauling out, patching it up. I really think that every little thing happens for a reason, and so another issue that can kind of get dealt with, two birds, one stone here, is the rudder shaft that has constantly been leaking into the bilge and filling it up almost every day. We've been having to pump it out and check it every couple hours when we're underway. We can actually finally get the chance to repack that because we're going to have to drop the rudder. So there's a little silver lining in everything. I am definitely very frustrated and upset. I may have had a good cry last night, but I just kind of got to say this is what it is. It's how she goes, and gonna deal with it.
Basically, we've got to disconnect our whole steering assembly here. Gonna try and not undo any of the cables or anything like that for now. There's some bolts in the bottom side of the plate we've got to loosen up, pull these cotter pins out, pull this puppy off. Yeah, slide it out, I guess, and then start the fun work.
The real work.
Just
break it a bit more. Doesn't seem like that was doing a whole lot.
What's about to happen here?
All right, well, we are full suited up in our spacesuits, and it's kind of perfect working hour because it is just so ridiculously hot here during the day. Now that the sun's going down, we are gonna attack, kind of grinding off and sanding down the edges of this thing to make it somewhat more smooth so that the fiberglass will be able to adhere to it properly. We weren't actually on board when it happened. It wasn't like a big significant instance. Like, it wasn't like, boom, we hit a reef or anything like that. We didn't even really know because I actually wasn't on board. We were anchored fairly close to a reef, but the wind was pushing us completely away from it. Thought it was all good. We're a little concerned about it, but then I ended up hanging out on Lost, and you know, sometime through the night or whatever, it must have swung and dragged all across that reef. And so Brian on Kiki's boat actually went back to that reef to go and see if he could find the other half of the rudder, and he found a couple chunks for sure.
Yeah, thanks for trying anyway.
That is definitely where it happened. We know now, and now it's just a matter of dealing with it and fixing it. Something's always going wrong on the boat, but it's how you choose to deal with it and how you choose to overcome it. And so he's helped me a lot with that, to not be so, let it affect me so much. Because I think if I didn't have him or the rest of the awesome crew that we've been buddy boating with, I would have thrown myself overboard and given up already. I think we're a pretty solid team. We're trying to get it done. And it's not going to be the prettiest job. It's not a proper fix. It is very much just a band-aid fix. give it enough structural integrity to get us to Grenada.
Yes, so it won't be to everyone's approval, but it will get the job done. We promise you that.
And we're limited, like obviously there's proper tools and things that you can use, but if you're only on the hard for 3 days and you're trying to bang this job out as quickly as you can, we're not gonna go and spend hundreds of dollars on the proper tools or equipment just to do it for a couple days and then not use it, right? So we're doing what we can with what we have, and I think we've done a pretty damn good job, honestly, for what we're working with here.
It actually looks better than it probably was beforehand.
Yeah.
Minus the bottom looking a little wonky.
Yeah.
Remember, everybody, there's more than one way to skin a cat, okay?
Exactly.
As I was rummaging around in a drawer looking for a part, I stumbled across this old survey of the boat from 2002. Turns out the boat used to be named Boondoggle. As I was reading through, I found a pretty vital piece of information that helps make sense of all of this. We'd been struggling to understand how the rudder could have just perfectly separated into two. Turns out the rudder had been delaminated and cracked for years.
Okay, so we've come a long way. We kind of trimmed up all the jagged edges and just grinded that off to create like a nice smooth edge. And then we grinded and sanded down the gel coat to expose the fiberglass. And so the reason why we kind of did this is to prep it for re-glassing it on the other side. So basically why there's so much width we've taken off here is because when we wrap the fiberglass, it's going to keep adding another layer and go a bit farther and farther each time. So doing this, each time we do that, it's going to add thickness, so then it will kind of meet what's already existing here and create a nice level playing field. And then, yeah, the next step is going to be to flip it over, which is the side that has all the exposed foam. And there's a couple of parts that have like big chunks kind of taken out of it. And so we're gonna Bondo and just fill those so that it smooths everything out, and then we'll be ready for the glass. So probably the biggest highlight of this whole experience in this boatyard, the little store that's here where we got all the materials for the fiberglass and stuff, they had these chairs sitting there and we asked the guy how much they were, and he basically just told us we could have them. Somebody left it there and he said they were going to throw them out, and we were like, we'll definitely take these.
Yeah, they're pretty bad ace.
It has made the experience so much better. Like, we don't have any sort of folding camping chairs at all on the boat, so it would have been sitting on probably one of those blocks while we were doing this whole process. They've got the little shade on them and everything, so I mean that's a hell of a score.
But we put them under the shade as well, so they're super shaded. Sweet.
Once we finished glassing, we had to wait for quite a while to ensure that it was completely cured before moving on to the final step of gel coat.
Well, here you have it, folks. It's not pretty, it's not perfect, but it is what it is. So we slapped on a couple coats of gel coat and had to wait an extra day just to make sure it was all dry. And we're kind of just leaving it with the gel coat. We don't really have time to paint over it. And at this point, it's not about how it looks, it's about if it's strong enough to hold. So as it is right now, it's definitely way stronger, much more like structurally sound compared to what it was, and that's all that matters to get us down to Grenada. Because as it stands right now, we've got 9 days to make it down there from the BVI's, So I think it's gonna hold. I think we're good. And I definitely want to mention Virgin Gorda Yacht Harbor. They have been absolutely fabulous. We called them the morning of. They were able to haul us out that day and gave us an awesome deal for just haul out and launch, and we stayed for the weekend. And yeah, the guys in the yard have been fantastic. Everybody in the office has been wonderful to deal with. They've all been super accommodating, and so can't say enough good things about this yard here. And something me and Kiki both said was, this is probably the nicest boatyard we've done work in because the view over here is amazing. I mean, you can't complain if you can see the beautiful ocean right there while you're working on the boat. So I'm feeling good, fingers crossed, everything goes well, and once we get put in today, we are just gonna haul ass and head for Grenada.